Hi there, I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent training. Welcome to our Saturday live question and answer class. It's so nice to see you here and to have been interacting with you over the week on our Word of the Day videos, as well as in our new series, our shadowing playlist, and our Vowels Challenge series. Do feel free to put your questions in the chat at any time. I will answer them after we talk about our initial topic. At the beginning of class today, I want to take a recent user request. They were asking about the words sell, shell, and shale. And while we're talking about these kinds of contrasts, we'll look at a few other vowels, words that have the s, and sh, sounds, and these vowel contrasts. I'm also going to share some resources for how you can use contrasting words to help you improve your pronunciation and accent, and share some resources and links on the channel. For example, I'll put this in the chat here now. This is our link to our contrasting words playlist, where you'll find more materials like this. So if this topic is helpful for you, you'll really like that playlist as well. You also note that at the top I've pinned a comment for how you can learn more about channel membership, and specifically I've been gifting channel memberships. So I can't control who those memberships go to, but you can be eligible for a gift if you're on your desktop and you click on that link. You have to allow gifts from the channel. So if that's something that you wanted to check out, you can obviously join as a channel member and pay the low fee to try that out to see some of our resources. But if you'd like to try it for free and be offered a gift of it, you need to allow gifts on the channel. So check that out by clicking that link, and you can find out more on our channel page as well. Okay, so let's get started. I want to talk about these words. This is a great request. I think a lot of people have a challenge with these vowel sounds as well as with these S and SH differences. So I'm saying S and SH, but there are different ways we spell these sounds. The S sound that's in sell is typically spelled with letter S. Sometimes it's spelled with letter C. Most of the time, S, you'll see a letter S. But letter S says lots of different sounds, so you can't always count on letter S saying the S sound. In all of these words, it does say S. And then the sh sound, which is like in the IPA is like a very tall, skinny S. We often do spell that with SH. It can also be spelled with T or C, like TI and CI, for example, in nation or special. But in all of these words, it's spelled with letters SH. So what I want to talk about is the difference between these two sounds. So when we're making the S sound, the tongue is back behind the teeth, and the tongue tip can either be up or down. It doesn't really matter too much. Every individual does it differently. But the important part is that the air passes through a very skinny area. So my tongue is close to my teeth. There's a little space for the air to pass through. And you think of that sound as being skinny and narrow. It can continue. There's noise. There's air flowing. That's how we make that S sound. I think many languages have this S sound, and it doesn't usually give too much trouble, except for knowing where it is and whether to say S or the Z voiced sound or another sound. The sh sound is made in the same way, except my tongue is further back, and now there's more space for that air to come through. So S sounds different than sh, because the sh sound has a bigger opening for that air to pass through. You might have noticed also when I say S, my lips are fairly skinny and narrow, and when I say sh, there's a little more space here. You don't have to round your lips, but for some people, rounding the lips like sh helps them make a distinction between the S and sh sounds, and you can feel sh. Tends to be that difference. So that's one tip I have for those. I do have a more detailed video about S and sh, and you can find that on our Sounds of English playlist, and in our Sounds of English course, I go through this as well. So looking at the vowel sounds now in these words, for sell, we have the vowel that's in words like read or get. So trying matching that, for example, get the shell, cell, the red one. You can use words that are maybe easier for you to get this vowel and match. I will be talking about the vowel soon in our Vowels Challenge playlist, and of course, I cover all of the sounds of English in our Sounds of English course. The difference between the and the a is that the a vowel is tense and it's a diphthong. So I just did cover vowel a, diphthong a in our Vowel Challenge series. And when I do the a, I'm opening and closing. I'm sliding and gliding on that vowel. Sail, sell. When I'm saying sell, there's no movement for the sound. It's just the certain amount of openness and a certain amount of laxness. Sell, sail, sail. So sail, ale, I'm gliding closed. Sell, I'm just staying fairly open. Ale, I'm a little more open and a little more closed. I'd say sell, the F vowel is a little more closed. So for sail and shale, if the vowel is what gives you trouble, then try doing, for example, get and sell, say and sail. If the consonants give you trouble, then trying see the sail, she likes shale, making a match with those as well. So using these contrasts can be helpful. You notice that I said say together with sail. Sometimes with the L sound, the vowel is a little more challenging for people to get because sail, we have to kind of link between those. So it's almost like an A. There's a little bit of a glide connecting those vowels. Sail. Same thing with shale versus shell, L, I just can go right to the L. Then when we have the A vowel, like in cat, we have the name Sal and the word shall, like we shall. These are less commonly used. So A plus ul is a kind of uncommon combination. We have it in words like pal or the name Al. Most of the time when you have letter A and an L, you'll have the A vowel, like in all, tall, fall, etc. But this viewer was requesting the word shall. So just think of for the A, the tongue is down in the front and up in the back, A. So you can think about matching, for example, that shall, my mouth is more open, versus say shale, I'm gliding, versus get the shell, mouth is more closed, and that sound doesn't glide. Lastly, just for good measure, we'll include sole. So this kind of sole, the fish or the sole of your shoe, and this kind of sole, the spiritual soul, have the same O sound. So you could try no soul, go soul, and then shoal, like the rocks on the shore, also has that same O but the SH sound. So a lot of words here, a lot of information. Depending on where your challenges lie, you want to narrow it down to contrast words that are helpful for you. But as you can see on the comment there, I've given you a link to our playlist for contrast words. So you can use that to see lots of different contrasts for all sorts of different consonants or vowels, whatever might be challenging for you. I suggest checking that out if you found this to be a helpful resource. And as I mentioned, I'll be covering all of these vowels in our vowel series, and I do already have videos for many of these contrasts as well as for all of the vowels of English here on the channel. Feel free to put your questions in the chat at any time, and I also want to make sure that I cover a couple of words regarding syllable stress from a former channel member whose request I missed, so I'm going to go over that next, and then I'll turn to your questions. So this channel member was talking about the challenge with learning where to stress syllables. So I have some resources for that on our website or on our channel as well. So I'm going to give you a link here now for the some videos that have help for syllables, understanding where syllables are stressed, how to learn more about that, And then you can also look up individual words on our channel, as well as here is a link for our intonation playlist. So I want to make sure you have this as well. Things regarding having to do with rhythm and intonation are in our intonation playlist, as well as in our online courses. But this viewer had some specific words they were wondering about for the syllable stress, so let's cover those. So first of all, the brand name McDonald's. In McDonald's, we have 3 syllables. The first syllable is unstressed, and then we stress on the don syllable, and we have another unstressed syllable. So it sounds like McDonald's, which you'll see that in the dictionary they mark the stress. So it's really helpful to be able to look up a word and see there's a little line before the stressed syllable. So when you're wondering about a word, look it up in an online dictionary. A regular dictionary works as well, but the nice thing about an online dictionary is that you can click on, if you're in the right dictionary, you can click on it, hear the word said, and then often that's easier for people to get the rhythm when they hear McDonald's. They can hear this, that we stretch on the stressed syllable, and we're short and reduced on the other syllables. So that would sound kind of like Mick. So if there's any vowel there, it's a little sound, Mick, but we're really reducing that vowel. Then we have a clear da syllable, McDa, and then we group our z together, McDonald's, Nolds. So basically no vowels in the beginning and the end here. If anything, a little here and a little here, McDonald's. But you want to try stressing on that stressed syllable first. That sounds like Donald's, McDonald's. And then another of the this viewer's questions was about the town Ottawa. So in Ottawa, we have first syllable stress. Is long, and then the and syllables are reduced. So it sounds like Both O and A say vowel schwa, the sound. Writing that out, it would look like I'm going to write a D here because in American English, Ottawa, we would flap that T sound. You can say Ottawa. I'm not sure which one they do in Canada. Probably Ottawa, but maybe Ottawa, depending on where in Canada. And then we'll have the schwa and our another schwa. So Ottawa, first syllable, Ottawa. Second syllable, McDonald's. And then your third request, this viewer also wanted to know about Montreal. So very conveniently, you gave us a syllable stress for the first, second, and third syllables. So these are great examples. And again, my apologies for not covering this sooner. I missed your request, but here we are. We have Montreal. So as I was mentioning earlier, usually AL in English instead of al, like it was in shall and sal, is usually aw, the aw vowel, like in all. So I would rewrite that for you with AW. For example, Montreal. You can think about it just like the word ALL as well, all. We all live in Montreal. That's also probably a good way to remember that that's where we have the stress. In Montreal, I would say we probably have secondary stress on that first syllable because it has the clear ah vowel. Letter O says ah. We also have a clear E in tree. Montreal also is going to be pronounced in French by many speakers because, of course, they speak French in Montreal. But this would be the American English / Canadian English pronunciation of it, Montreal. Okay, so as you can see in the chat, I've put a few links there for you about syllable stress and our intonation playlist where you can get more help for that as well. Thank you for your patience as I was covering these topics, and now I'd like to turn to your questions. For those of you who are here today, welcome everyone. If you're watching this later on as a replay, you can leave questions in the comments, and I will turn to those and give you responses as well. Okay, we have a question about the phrase "I adore" and whether it sounds the same as "I adore." So that would be a way to rewrite this phrase, yes. We stress on the door syllable of adore, thinking about as long as you're pronouncing this article with the schwa, that's how we would do it. So I would write it I might write it as, I often write the I with IGH, like we say in right or night, just because there's no other way to interpret that combination of letters. I adore. And we have our or vowel here. So you might just write it as door, I adore. Yes, that's another way of looking at that combination of sounds. You're very welcome for the gift. Thanks for your channel membership. I didn't get to select you specifically because YouTube determines who to give the gifts to, but those of you who have turned on allow gifts will be eligible, and I'll be continuing to do membership gifts. These gifts also are our online course membership, so if you email me, Christine@speechmodification.com, or leave me a comment about how to contact you, I can set you up with access for 1 month to our online courses for free as well. So that's part of one of the perks of channel membership, getting responses quicker, videos made for you, members only videos and classes, and then online course memberships can access our online courses as well. Okay, we have a question about the word naked. So this has first syllable stress, the A diphthong, and then since the second syllable is unstressed, it's an I sound, a reduced naked kid. So think about that like naked, but very short on the kid, naked. And you're asking about so even though we say the word snaked, like it snaked through the grass, because usually when we have a k sound, a voiceless sound at the end, and we make past tense, that one sounds like snaked. For whatever reason, naked, we add a syllable there. There's a few words that do that as well. So if we have like baked or snaked, baked is a better example. It's a more common word. Not 2 syllables, just one, baked. It follows the rules. This one is an exception. Typically, it's not a verb, so that might be why. For verbs, if I have bake and baked, the rule is when I add the ed, if I have a voiceless sound like K, then the ed says t, versus if I have a voiced sound like A in play, then the ed will say d. You can see more about past tense rules and how to pronounce ed in a couple of videos I have for that, if that's a question for you. In this case, it's not a verb, but so it has 2 syllables. Great question. Thank you. That is a little bit confusing if you look at it and you haven't heard the word pronounced. It looks like it might be 1 syllable. Okay. We have a question about the word truth and truths. So one truth and many truths. I do think truths, we can also say truths. So sometimes when we have th at the end and we make it plural, this is a voiceless th. It sounds like truth, no air, not truth, but truth. And then for truths, we might make more of a voiced th sound, which would make it be a z sound, truths. There are many truths, but I think you can also do truths with an S sound. This is just like 1 bath or 2 baths or baths, which is a topic I'll be covering soon. I have a video coming out for that on how we make the THS sounds. I actually do have several videos on that already. sometimes it'll say this, and often it'll change from a voiceless th to a voiced th. So for example, mouth and mouths, noun and verb. The baby mouths the toy. His mouth is small. So here we have the z sound. Yeah, great question. Okay, and you also had a question about attorney. So for attorney, it sounds like attorney, attorney. Second syllable stress, and you can think about that as an ER or a UR, but letters OR in attorney say the sound rather than the or sound. He's been an attorney for many years. Yeah, okay, great. I'll come back to your other questions after I've answered a few other people's if I have time at the end of class. Thanks for all those great requests. Question about the word zero, whether it has the E, whether it's like an E sound as in eel or the sound as in sir. So even though it has letters ER, zero, it has the ear diphthong. So you can think about it like zero, or I tend to say it with the R on the first syllable, zero. You'll see it like this in the IPA. So this E-er combination we have in words like fear, tear, etc. Zero. Basically, you can say zero or zero, but basically you have to go from the E to the R to the O all together. So thinking about like eero, making sure you can do that glide. People often ask me, where do I divide the syllable on something? And it's often with words with R like this. And I really don't want to have a break there. I don't want zero or zero. I want zero, where I'm kind of going through both. As a result, the E is not as tense. So if you were kind of thinking, oh, isn't it kind of like an like in sir? It's not zero, zero. So it's not really an I either. The ear is just not as tense of the E. If I'm saying zero, I am using that E sound. It's just as it's gliding into the diphthong it may sound a little like this instead of like this. You'll see that written that way in the dictionary, which I think they do because of the starting place and the finishing place for zero. Just make sure that you can run through eero, zero. That's a good way to practice, putting those middle syllables together. Okay, great. Good question. I believe I have a video about how to pronounce zero as well, but I probably, I hope that was thorough enough to answer your question about that. Okay, we have a question about the suffixes shun and sun. Okay, so how to know when shun says shun and when it might say chun, and also when same thing for sion, saying shun, chun, or jun. So I think there probably is a pattern, like in question, it's the chun sound. We have an S here. In version, it's the zh sound, and we have an here. So I'm thinking it may have to do with the voicing before the sound, but I don't know what the pattern is off the top of my head. Most of the time you have the sh. I do have some videos about when S says zh versus s. So I can research this question for you and get back to you if there is a rule or a pattern. For right now, I would say you may have to learn word by word which do which. Fortunately, there aren't too many words that do the chun or the jun. Most of them are going to be the shun. And I do know that when there's a vowel before the shun, like communication, nation, rendition, it's going to be the sh sound for the most part. So I'll get back to you with some more answers about that question. If you do me a favor and leave me that comment on this video or on another video, that will serve as a reminder for me to do that research and let you know what the pattern is, because it is a question that many people have, how to know what to do with these ending sounds, and when do we have these examples like version or question where it isn't the typical sh sound. Really good question, and something I'm happy to look up for you and find out if there's a rule or pattern, or if it's just something where you have to learn word by word. Typically, for these types of things, learning the few exceptions for words that you say the most can be helpful, but there is sometimes a rule or a pattern. I just don't know that one off the top of my head. Okay, great. Thanks so much for that question. And yes, do me a favor and leave that in a comment for me to help me remember to look it up for you and get some more information. Okay, we have a question about the word arrow in British and American English. So for American English, arrow sounds like arrow. Again, here's another example of that R where it's not really air-o, there's no break. You can also think about it like arrow. Again, I tend to lean towards this one because I think it sounds weird to say arrow. Arrow, we do need to kind of connect the R between those two vowels. In British English, arrow, they might do a little bit more arrow. I'm not sure about this one. They might, for their air sound, it might sound a little bit more like an arrow. But I have the feeling that it's air in both British and American English. I do recommend the Oxford Learner's Dictionary because it'll show you American and British English, and you can listen to a recording of a real person saying each word. So that's one thing to note. Sometimes the IPA in the dictionary is going to show you the same thing for both of those, so they might show you that, but it will sound a little different in a British accent than an American accent. So this might not be one where there's a completely different pronunciation, but the accent will make the vowel sound a little bit different. Again, I could look that one up in the dictionary, or you can use Oxford Learner's Dictionary for that American-British contrast. It's a really good resource for that. Okay, great question. Thank you so much. We have a question with the ah vowel sound. Depending on the person who says it, this viewer says that sometimes for ah, like in cat, they hear more of an yeah or or ah. So I think what you're noticing for vowels is that sometimes Americans do diphthongize their vowels a little bit. Like if I'm saying the cat. I think sometimes we start on the ah and we come off on a little bit of a schwa, like he sat, or I'm really sad. It's not always a pure ah, sad. Sad. Yeah, so it's even maybe does have a little bit of that E sound, like he's so sad. Yes, what you're noticing is correct, that we aren't always using pure vowels. We have a tendency to glide in and out a little bit, sometimes with an sound at the end, a more tense or higher sound at the beginning. This one, I'm not feeling that one as much. I would say maybe more this one. Again, this is something that when you're depending on the context. So I was using sad as an example because the s sound is forward, and the vowel a is longer in this word because it has a d, a voice sound at the end. So the longer I have to hold the vowel, the more likely there's going to be some diphthongization where I'm kind of gliding a little bit into and out of it. It's not going to be incorrect to just do a, sa, sad, but what you want is if you have to hold a word longer, like for many people, saying sat is easier than saying sad, or because this one is shorter, and so that lax vowel is easier to do short for them. And when they do this, they might become a little more like sad or sad. They might add some tension there. If you aim for this vowel, and what you want is to have that be where you're really landing, so that if you have to hold something longer, that you might come in as a little more tense and come out as a little more lax and central, but that you're getting to this sound for the majority of your vowel. So aiming for just doing this vowel is great, but probably what you hear is in some contexts, depending on what the consonant sounds are and how long we have to hold the vowel, we do have those tendencies in English. I often don't get into that degree of detail when I'm talking about sounds, because for many people, just getting this vowel is really the goal and the target, but that's a good observation that you've made. And as you work on connected speech, and you get that placement for English where you're really kind of centering around the schwa sound, your tongue is in that kind of position and moving from there, these elements of how the vowels sound in different contexts will come in more naturally for you. So you don't necessarily need to try to work on adding that, but if your ear hears it, you might notice kind of how that, the context, the speaking context, the sounds around that sound you're aiming for affect the vowel sound. Yeah, great. That's a good question. Very good details. All right, we have a question about where versus were. So here we have the same ERE spelling. In the word where, it's the air diphthong, and in the word were, it's just the plain sound. So thinking about this one as were, or it's the same as this word were, like the rotors were whirring, and this one as, I would think about it like where, think about that air diphthong. So again, I'm gliding for air, closing a little bit, starting more tense and moving into the air, where, and were. Also having some, this one, where, we also have the word where, like warehouse, same pronunciation, and where, like wear my clothes, same pronunciation. So I think this is usually a spelling challenge for most people. You probably can do the air, where sound. It's just that when you see how these words are spelled, it doesn't really make sense to the brain. So visualize it in a way that will help you. Or use another word that can help you, for example, like her and were, and there and where, or care and where. Something that's spelled in a way that makes more sense to your brain on how to do the air. Letters with R and air diphthongs can be very confusing spelling-wise. I do recommend my video about air, ear, ire, etc. And also I have some specific videos about what happens with W and R sounds and how that spelling is slightly different. But visualizing it in a way that can help you differentiate those can be helpful. I do have a video walking you through all of the W and R sounds, where, we're, wire, etc. So that might be helpful for you as well. Anytime I'm mentioning another video, if you come back after class and leave a comment with your question, I can look up what that video is and give you the link to send you there. You can also use the search box on the channel page and type in your words, and videos that I have for those words will pop up for you. That's a great question. Many people have it, so thank you for bringing that up today. Okay, we have a question about the p sound and aspirated p sounds. So the p sound at the start of words in like pay or paper, we have a little burst of air p that comes out. If I'm saying an S before the p sound, like speed, that's not going to have less aspiration. So how much air comes out is on a spectrum. When there's no air at all and the voice comes right on, we have a b sound. When there's maximum air, like p, pipe, p, really a lot of air comes out, it's going to be noisy. That's going to be somewhat exaggerated. And then in between we have kind of regular, and then SP blends fall in the middle here somewhere. Aspirated just means that there's air coming out. And with the P sounds, it's not as noticeable as with the T sounds. So when I say take or talk, if I don't aspirate those, take or talk, they really sound different. Whereas in paper, paper, yeah, it does sound like closer to a B if I don't let enough air out. But in a word like paper, 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 this one has more aspiration. Paper. This one is somewhat unaspirated because it's unstressed syllable. It's followed by that sound, followed by a vowel, unstressed vowel sound. So you can feel aspiration if you're trying to make sure that you're using it. If you have a tendency to say pay or paper without that burst of air, put your hand up, pay, paper, really force that air out. And at first it'll probably feel pretty exaggerated to have to do p, p with a big puff of air. And when we're talking, I don't say, I'm going to pay with paper. I'm not using a huge burst of air, but I do need some air. Pay with paper, paper. So play around with, that's another time that we don't aspirate as much when there's a blend like play, play. It's not totally unaspirated, play, but doesn't fall in the B sound, but blends are going to be here somewhere in the middle. Hopefully that addresses what you're looking for. A lot of great detailed questions today. Some of you are pretty advanced. You've been working on these American accent and American pronunciation for a while, I can tell. Thank you for those questions. Okay, yes. A follow-up question on the ah sound. So cat, cat, trap, trap. That you might be hearing that. I don't know about the ah trap, trap. That sounds to me, that's more like a Southern accent. So in the South, in Southern accent, they do their diphthongs differently. They glide in and out of them differently. And I'm going to be covering that topic fairly soon because we had some members requesting where diphthongs and monophthongs change. So I'm doing some research on that. So I'll suggest that you tune back into the channel, and I'll be covering that again in a little bit more detail soon. Great. Okay. Question about 10 is greater or bigger than 5, and 5 is less than, smaller than 10. I think we use, so in math, we use greater than and less than for sure, versus bigger and smaller. We would say a bigger number. 10 is a bigger number than 5. We definitely use less than a lot more than smaller than, I would say. But if I'm just saying, if I'm talking to someone casually, 10 is bigger than 5. I use that to mean it's a bigger number than 5. So you will hear people say bigger and smaller. Which one is bigger? And if you're just using, which one is bigger, 1,000 or 100, you can also say which is a greater number and a smaller number. So bigger and smaller do happen, but people will use both. I'm sorry that's not a very clear answer. It really depends on the context. But I would say there's nothing wrong with using greater than and less than, especially if you're talking about numbers and quantities. I think we also use more and less without the numbers. So again, unfortunately, we have a lot of different ways to do the same thing, and the formal correct way is not always used. In this case, I think it is often used rather than that bigger and smaller. Great question. Okay, we have a question about the word equivalence. So equivalence, whether it has a T sound before the final S sound. Equivalence. equivalence, lents. It doesn't have a T. I'm not saying equivalents, but when I say equivalence, lents, it does have a voiceless S. So when we're saying like plans, usually NS is going to be an NZ sound. My plans are. The equivalences, CE says a S sound, and so that's probably what you're hearing, that we have, this is voiceless, so it might sound a little bit like lents. There's no T sound. Okay, here's my answer. There's no T sound, but if there were a T sound, if I was saying plants, it's going to sound the same as equivalence because I'm not releasing that T. So for plants, I'm doing N and S, just like I am for equivalence. So that's probably what you're noticing. If you're thinking T, it's going to be fine. You're going to say it correctly as long as you're not trying to say plants, equivalence. So there's no T in equivalence, but it's equivalent to how we would say plants, where we don't really say the T there either. We just do a very short N and a voiceless S sound. Great question. Thank you. Okay. Thanks so much for sticking with me for a long class today. I will quickly go back to our viewer who had a lot of questions and see which other ones of yours I can answer. So you were asking about incubators. So this is stressed on the first syllable, ink. So it sounds like incubators. First syllable stress. And then you also wanted to know about angry. So I'm noticing a trend here. NC in incubators has the NG sound, incu, angry. This NG also has an NG sound rather than an N and a J, not angry, but ang. So we have the A vowel, angry. First syllable stress, so it sounds like ang. Make sure the tongue is back, and then you have another G sound, angry. And lastly, you wanted to know about the word super. So first syllable stress, oo vowel, and then unstressed at the end, super. That was a super request, super questions today. So nice to see so many of you here, and thank you so much for creating a great class with me with your wonderful questions. As I mentioned earlier, I did put some links in for learning about channel membership if it's something that you're interested in. And if you would like to be eligible to receive a gift of a channel membership from me, I'll be continuing to do some channel membership gifts over the next few weeks towards the end of the year. Do join us tomorrow for our Word of the Day class, and we'll have some more vowel challenge classes coming up. We also have a new playlist of shadowing where I'm teaching and modeling and giving you practice opportunities for shadowing conversations, so you can practice having that fluent speech, working on intonation, pronunciation, and putting it all together. So check that out on the channel page and on our shadowing playlist. I'll be back tomorrow with another Word of the Day, and next Saturday we'll have another live question and answer class. If you're watching this later on, leave me a question or a request in the comments, and I'll get back to you with resources. And if I didn't fully answer your question today, or I mentioned a link, do leave me a comment so that I can give you that link for the video for more details. Thanks so much for a great class, and I look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound like a native speaker, you can do it. speechmodification.com. Bye, everyone. Thanks for a great class.